Lance Reisland, Cleveland.com, and, of course, the former high school football coach here locally who is going to be on the pregame show here with us at 92 Through the Fan starting week 1. Joining us right now on the station. Lance, how's it going, my friend?
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. How are you? Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday, brother.
Do you agree with me, Lance, that one of the best days on the calendar every year is like the first day of, not week 0 necessarily, but like week 1 of the college football season when you can just sit like a potato on your couch and just watch football all day, start with game day. It's just, it's day to day. It's wire to wire football. There's nothing like it, right?
Well, I'll tell you what. So I'm gonna extend that a little bit. This whole weekend for me is like Christmas morning, right? You got high school football starts on Friday. You start week 0 today. Obviously, the NFL is coming. So yeah, this is a great weekend. But you're right. When you watch College Game Day, see the headgear, you could sit around, watch the games all day. It's a pretty special day for sure.
Lance, do you feel at this point that the Browns are going to keep all 4 of these quarterbacks come Tuesday when they got to cut the roster down?
Well, obviously, I think if somebody is kind of on the outside looking in, for me, it'd be Kenny Pickett just because he hasn't been available. Now, yeah. I thought he had some good moments earlier. You and I and Earl, we all saw him early. I thought he did some good things, and I think he fits the scheme very well. And people, I know get sick of hearing me saying that, but really his ability to move within the pocket, throw up from multiple launch points, he's a quarterback I believe you can win with, not because of. And Stefanski has great success with that, but just because of his inability to practice. And then obviously I think both young quarterbacks did very well for themselves in their starts. And obviously that also kind of puts some pressure where do they feel that these young guys can be the backup? Obviously we know a bunch of guys plays, but if you ask me, I think I would say they're going to keep all 4 if you ask me, but if somebody is going to go or get traded or something, that it would be Kenny Pickett just because he hasn't been able to practice.
Yeah, I guess my follow-up, and I think you kind of already answered it, I am along the lines of Kenny Pickett's resume is not good enough to me, in my opinion, for him to make this roster without playing a preseason game. The reality of the situation is even if you throw Tyler Huntley into the mix, of all the quarterbacks that's on the Browns roster, he's the only one that I have never seen in a game situation, regular season or preseason. So let's say hypothetically he makes this roster. Would you agree with that notion, or would you agree with the Browns' decision to keep Kenny Pickett on this roster despite seeing him play in this system in a real game?
Well, the thing I would say, Earl, is that when you have experience, I will say this from a coach's perspective. For some reason, and sometimes it's rightfully so, sometimes it's not, but for some reason when you have a guy, even at the high school level, who has experience, you for some reason have a little bit more confidence. And some of that is good, some of that is bad, some of that might be warranted or not. But in your mind, you're thinking, this guy can run my system. He's also a guy, like when you're out there, he can handle the moment. He can make some certain throws. You've seen those from his film. So I think there's a level of security for a coach when a guy has experience. That being said, I also think when you keep an older guy, if the young guys aren't quite there yet, whether you agree or disagree, if you're a coach and you don't feel your young guys are there yet and something was to happen to Flacco, do you want that veteran presence there just for everybody else in the locker room? Because with a rookie, regardless of where the rookie's at, you're going to have some rookie mistakes. And with that, keeping Pickett can kind of keep people thinking, which I truly believe in. Winning has got to be the most important thing, not development. Winning, because winning is what improves everything else. So, obviously he hasn't played, but he has a little bit of a resume just for that coach's, that feeling of security, having a guy who's been out there at least.
Lance Reisland joining us here on the show. You can hear him pregame throughout the season right here on 92 Through the Fan. So we're kind of getting him warmed up here a little bit. Lance, along the lines of those quarterbacks again, especially the 2 rookies, we have Shedeur Sanders' debut a couple weeks back. We have Dillon Gabriel's debut from last weekend. What are you looking to see as they both get a chance to play today to sort of round out this preseason and set the stage for whatever their roles will be come the regular season?
Well, first of all, the amount of press that these 2 young guys get, it's pretty crazy, and I think they've done a pretty good job of handling the press that has come at them both. I also think both of them did a very nice job. If you think about the pressure Shedeur was in, minimal reps, did a fantastic job in his start. And then you go to Gabriel, who's kind of, I thought besides those 2 mistakes, which count, I always tell people those mistakes count, I thought he handled himself very well. So I thought both handled themselves very, very well. moving forward, you want to see, for me, I think they've taken great steps. And obviously you and I and Earl, and there's a bunch of us down there at practice, and I've seen the progression. Now, there was a couple days where Dillon struggled with accuracy really, really bad. But I also saw his footwork very good. I also saw the processing very good. I also saw launch points. I saw setting pass protection, going to the right spot, just not being accurate. But unfortunately, in the NFL, it's a product-based business, and that accuracy has to be a part of it. And then obviously, I'd like to see Shedeur get some more formations, more multi-field reads. I've seen him do those things at Colorado. So I think they're doing a great job of setting them up for success. And I know people disagree with me on that, but when you see the progress from day one with their footwork and their processing and for me, they both are great kids. They both have great body language. I think it's okay if you're a Browns fan to say, hey, let these guys improve and see who wins it. And that's kind of the way I look at it. I try to stick it to the film, but I've been very impressed with both of them just taking steps. And obviously, Dillon has to continue to be accurate, and then Shedeur, they have to continue to give him reps so he can either take the next step or not, but I think they need to see that.
Lance, I know Shedeur's returning from an oblique injury when he plays today, but based off his performance and based on, as you alluded to, what you've seen with your own eyes as far as the steady progression of the things that's been asked of him since he's been drafted by the Cleveland Browns, do you predict that in this game we might see some instances to where it looks like the Cleveland Browns put more on his plate? Because I feel like he's earned the right to have more put on his plate. Do you think we'll see any of that today?
Well, it depends on what they're doing with those. You also, the thing that I like is that you got to remember there's going to be some young guys in front of him. And one of the things that can really take a quarterback stepping back is just constant pressure, right? So they got to make sure they put him in a spot for success in terms of moving the launch points underneath center gun with those young guys in front of him. Now, I think the thing that Shedeur has really improved on is his footwork. And people say, well, what was wrong with his footwork? Well, at Colorado, I've said this before, he didn't have any run game or any pass protection. So you start to retreat just to gain some time so you can make some throws. So I've seen that weight transfer. I've seen all that stuff happen. But the idea the narrative that he can't absorb this stuff, I don't think is really true. Now, it might be he's still working on his footwork from underneath center. There's a lot of things that go into it, but he can process the information. I think they have steps that they've had him on and steps that they believe will make him successful, and that's what I want to see, Earl. I just want to see him continuously progress with his footwork, being consistent with his footwork, making sure you're not leaving the pocket, making sure you take what they give you, obviously taking those deep shots when they're available, understanding that you got to rely on the defense this year, regardless if he's the quarterback or anybody else, the defense is his strength. And just kind of that overlying, wherever he's been the show. He's been the reason the team has been successful. And now in the NFL, he's learning how to be a part of that, which I think will then elevate him if he's going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. But yes, I think you're absolutely right. I think he's a guy that's earned the right, and that's kind of what you want in football, right? You get a shot, take advantage of your shot, and then make the next step.
Yo, Lance, we're all three of us is going to jump in on this kind of rebuttal to that last question, because it's funny. Me and Spencer talked about amongst ourselves 2 segments ago, and I said, you know what? For me, my gut feeling is it was never like this whole whiteboard stuff and, Shedeur don't know how to process or read what's going on out there. And I feel like, man, what a way to paint a picture as if he's slow or he doesn't get what's going on, like he doesn't understand football. And it could be one of those things to very well, like maybe the terminology is just so different and so complex from what he's used to. It's not that he doesn't understand what's going on out there. Me and you both have talked about everything that he does from the time that he takes the ball and drop backs to throw since he's worked on the footwork. The Browns have been overly impressed with. It's just the things like the terminology, et cetera, that they want him to work on. I just think whoever put that narrative out there at first that he couldn't process, that he didn't understand what was going on, bad job out of them. That's just my opinion.
Well, and here's a good way to look at it, Earl. So when you don't have any pass protection, so I think Shermer got a lot of criticism as well, but I think they did a great job. So if you don't have pass protection, you got to throw the ball before 2.8 or you're getting hit in the face. So what that ends up making the quarterback drift a little bit because he's trying to buy just a half a second. But then you can't have complex routes. You can't have full fold reads because you're not going to be able to hold on to the ball. So he did a great job with high lows that Kevin loves to run. He did a great job with smash concepts, crossing concepts, things that have to come out early. That's not a processing issue. In fact, that's a fantastic process, a lack of process, and that's actually really good at seeing what's in front of you. He knows the pressure's coming. So many times at Colorado, you'll see him slide. Even in the touchdown pass he threw to Caden Davis, you see him slide away from pressure. So he does a really good job of that. It's just the fact that at Colorado, he had to get rid of the ball so fast. So maybe they didn't have some of those full fold reads from left to right or right to left just because they didn't have time to do that. But he can absolutely make all those throws, and more importantly, he can make all those progressions and all those reads. It's just a matter of syncing everything up, which I think, for me as a coach, I like what they're doing with Shedeur Sanders. I know people don't like that because I think he is going to be, when he gets his shot, he is going to be mentally and physically prepared, especially with that footwork and his fundamentals, that he can kind of showcase who he is. If he's going to be a NFL player, he'll get a chance to do that because they've prepped him for it. Obviously, people have their own opinions, but I look forward to it. And I think I hope they both play great, and there's heavy competition. That's what the Browns need, in my opinion.
Lance Reisland, a few more minutes with him here on the Fan Hotline. Lance, off of the quarterback thing here, Isaiah Bond is expected to play at least somewhat today. I'm sure he's not going to be doing anything like too elaborate or advanced. He's only been here for like a week. But we were talking earlier, there was a list that was shared of players that were drafted since 2003 that were basically like the same stature as Isaiah Bond and ran a similar 40 time. And there was really only two names on the list of guys that like really panned out to be anything notable in the NFL. It was Deshaun Jackson and it was Tyler Lockett. I'm curious from you, just what should we really expect realistically from Isaiah Bond? Because I think sometimes these teams fall in love with like the idea of a player that's just super fast, and it doesn't always on the field turn into a player that ends up being a real, consistent contributor for you. And I think there's some expectations that maybe he's going to be something that maybe he's not. So what are you anticipating for like his role? What can he actually become, you think, at the NFL level?
Well, yeah, obviously you're right. So it's production, right? Didn't have huge numbers at Texas. Obviously, Texas has a ton of really good players, and Golden was there, and they had a bunch of other receivers and things like that. But the thing that would worry you if you're looking from outside is there is a lack of production. And as an offensive coordinator, your best players touch it. So what was that reason? Now, I think his speed correlates from the track to the football field, which some guys don't. I think he runs very well on the field. Now, what he can do for the Browns is that I think they can package him up, right, and not think of him as a receiver, especially through the first month. Think of him as a touch guy, right? And we all have those big sheets that all of us offensive coordinators hold. There's a spot in there that says touches. So whether it's a reverse, a hitch, a sail route, a vertical taken off the top, whatever, a bubble screen. You kind of create a package where you put him everywhere, but in his mind, he's just a touch guy. So early on, some of the things he can do, right? They're running the levels concept. He can be the top of the levels concept. Why? Because he can get everybody out of there quickly because he does run well. He can be a guy who catches the ball horizontally in space. Just create a touch for him. Let him use that speed. Don't make him overthink it because he's not a detailed route runner at this point. And a lot of times that happens with speed guys because they've been able to use their speed. So I just think you create a package early on. I think they'll create a touch package for him. But all the tools are there. He can run. He's good run after catch. He's not great at the catch point because he's only like 180. He doesn't have a huge catch radius, but I don't think they have guys like that. They need a speed guy who can catch, have some spatial awareness, catch that vertical over top, and then maybe create some yards, with some easy screens. It doesn't have to be a home run, but second two can win you a lot of games because you're in charge as an offensive coordinator. So I think early on, like I said, Spence, I think you just got to get touches. Don't worry about what position he is and use that speed however it can help either him or somebody else get open.
Lance, we got about 60 seconds, so I'll shift gears just a little bit and kind of close out with this. How impressed were you yesterday with the Glenville Tarblooders with a huge win over Massillon?
First of all, two great teams. But when you go down to Massillon and you beat Massillon at Massillon, that's a big win. That's a really hard place. There's probably not a tougher place. Maybe the Pit down in St. X, but there's not there's not a tougher place to play in the country than Massillon Paul Brown Stadium. So incredible win. They don't get enough credit for how well coached they are, how disciplined they are. They got players all over the place, but they're very well coached, and they believe they can win. And they're fun to watch. They're like I said, they don't trick you. They just come after you, and it's a very impressive win. But I'll be honest with you, Earl, not something I'm surprised about from them. Those guys, they believe they can. They think they can go anywhere, play anybody at any time. So. It's shocking to win in Massillon Paul Brown Stadium, but not shocking that Glenville would go down there and beat them. That's just how talented and how where that program's at this point.
He's Lance Reisland, Cleveland.com, former high school coach here in the area, and we appreciate his expertise. He will be again on the pregame show here at the Fan starting week 1 and throughout the season. Lance, I always appreciate you, my man, especially on short notice. Thanks for stopping by today.
Absolutely, guys. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
You too. Enjoy that ice cream while you're watching football.
Oh, so delicious.